Welcome back to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. Sean back again for another transfer video. We had two go up earlier about Xavier Wheeler to Kentucky and Shaquille Moore to Mississippi State, but this one is kind of out of nowhere. I don't think anybody really expected this player to come to his decision at this point on a Monday evening, late at night at 8 p.m. on the East Coast, 5 p.m. on the West Coast. I don't think many people expected that, but Remy Martin is headed to Kansas. And here's a funny little stat about Remy Martin in Kansas. They know his game very well because in 2017-2018, when Martin was a freshman at Arizona State, he had 21 points in his breakout game as a six-man on the team with Trey Holder and Shannon Evans. Came off the bench, dropped 21 points, showed what he could be in the future, and obviously for Arizona State, they got a really good player for 4 seasons. You know, he averaged 19 points a game each of the last 2 years. He was a first-team All-Pac-12 player each of the last 2 years. He was the Pac-12 Sixth-Man of the Year in 2017-2018. He wasn't Freshman of the Year because of DeAndre Ayton, but he was very impressive throughout his career. You know, he's always been a guy that's super boom or bust. He can have 5 points in one game and go 2 for 12 from the field, or he could have 30 points and he's going to go like 12 for 15 from the field. He's always been a guy that's super high volume since he's become the guy, but he can go on these crazy hot streaks where he's one of the best players in the sport. I mean, you look at this stretch he had last season, he had 30 points in a game against Oregon. Followed that up with 23 against Oregon State. And then he had 30 against USC, 25 against UCLA, 26 and 31 against Washington, and then 23 against Washington State. That's all in a 7-game stretch. And then the next 3 games were 6 points, 8 points, and 6 points. So that's just the kind of player you're getting with Remy Martin. He can definitely win you games, but I don't think he necessarily loses you games. But he's the kind of guy you want at the end of the game, having the ball, taking the last shot. He's an all-time great at Arizona State. I'd imagine his number still probably gets retired, even though he transferred from the program. He's keeping his name in the NBA draft, so we'll see if this is a Rajon Tucker situation. Like, he transferred from Little Rock to Memphis and never actually suited up. He stayed in the NBA draft, went undrafted. Now he's Clippers, maybe? No, 76ers, I believe, actually. He's been on a lot of teams at this point. But Rajon Tucker could be a similar situation. I'd imagine that Remy Martin actually plays for Kansas next season because he's not going to be an NBA player at any point. Maybe a G League guy, but he just isn't efficient enough from outside. He's not a good enough shooter, but he's a super fun and flashy player to watch at the college level. Sometimes he makes mistakes trying to do too much, some crazy passes that don't always go his way, and he takes some of those shots where it's from 30 feet and you don't want him to take it, but it goes down. That's just the kind of player Remy Martin is. He's going to make some interesting decisions, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But there's no questioning how talented of a player he is. And when you look at the Kansas roster for next year, you have 2 really talented guards with Joseph Yesufu, who burst onto the scene for Drake late in the season when Roman Penn got hurt, and then Remy Martin. They'll probably play together. That's 2 smaller guards, and neither are pass-first guys. They're both shoot-first guys. So they're both going to take a lot of shots. So I'm curious to see how that dynamic plays out. So that's your 2 guards right there. Then you can go a few different directions here. You can go, does this mean Ochai Agbaji leaves? I don't think the situations are connected, but then you're going to have to bench somebody. So let's say Abaji's back. Let's say he starts. If he's not, then Christian Brown starts. At the 4, Jalen Wilson's almost certainly going to come back. I doubt he stayed in the NBA draft just for feedback, I'm guessing. So he'll come back and play the 4. Versatile stretch 4, very talented player that had a really good start to the season last year. Kind of tapered off near the end of the season, but he's a guy that is going to be very good for Kansas next season. And then you have David McCormick at the 5, one of the best free throw shooters in the conference last year. Struggled early on, was, really struggling. He took some weird shots at the start of the year. He was fading away on hook shots, which just doesn't work because he's so strong. He's a big dude. He's 6'10", 265. Eventually, he's using his size to his advantage and, putting his head down more, going to the basket rather than fading away. That led to him being more consistent and being one of Kansas's most valuable players last season. And then when you look at the rest of the roster, you have Sidney Curry coming in from John A. Logan Community College, 6'8", 260 big man. He's a big dude who, hurts some rims with his dunking ability. I mean, he is incredibly strong. There's going to be some injured basketball rims next season because he throws down some seriously hard dunks. And then you had Cam Martin, a D2 transfer from Missouri Southern, started his career at Jacksonville State at the D1 level, but he was really good at Missouri Southern last year and now heads to Kansas. Mitch Lightfoot is back for his 20th season in college. And then you look at the rest of the roster, you have DeJuan Harris, does this mean he's out? Like, is he going to leave now? Because Remy Martin's there, Joseph Yesufu's there, there's not minutes for DeJuan Harris to play next season. So I'm curious to see if he decides to move on to another program for the next few seasons. We'll see what ends up happening there. You have Kyle Cuffey Jr., who's also a guard coming in, a 4-star recruit. You have Bobby Pettiford Jr., who's also a point guard. I'd imagine he doesn't play much this season, but maybe if an injury happens, he steps into the fold a bit. But Kansas right now, they look to be the best team in the Big 12. I'd put them in the same tier as Baylor and Texas, probably. That's the three, I think. Kansas is probably a top 10 team in the country. I'm going to have to revise my list of my way too early top 25 pretty soon. If Remy Martin's in there for Kansas, I have a hard time believing I won't have them top 10. So I'd imagine they're top 10. Texas is probably 12, and Baylor is probably 14. I mean, they're all in the same range of probably 5 spots. So the Big 12 looks to be really good next season. The only really not good teams are Iowa State, and it's going to be a rebuilding job there for sure. They only won 2 games last season, both against SWAC teams. And then you have West Virginia, who I don't think is going to be very good. You know, you lose Miles McBride, you lose Derek Culver, you could lose Taz Sherman and Sean McNeil. They're going to be in for a rebuild this season. But I think Kansas is in for a very good season. Obviously, last year, they got destroyed by USC in the round of 32. This year, I think they could be a second weekend caliber team, but I'm curious to see how the dynamic of Joseph Yesufu and Remy Martin plays. 2 undersized guards that hunt for their own shots a lot. How is that going to work for the Jayhawks next season? Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And until next time, have a good one.